Click?
You should just be able to click on the blue link and it should take you there. If not, you can highlight,
okay.
Copy and paste it into another tab in your browser. Okay, this is it's a sci-fi quiz. I actually did it for fun with a group that I had in an in-person class, but I also use it with something similar to it we use with Andrew Clenny up in his high school class on science fiction. So I know most of you are not science fiction fans. Does not matter. It's the elements of how it's put together that I want to talk you through in a little bit. And again, like I said, you do not need to watch the video. You can just guess at the questions below it, but know that you can play that video. So we'll give you a minute or two to do that, and then we'll start. Interesting conundrum with doing stuff like this via the remote presentation like we're doing is that you really can't tell when students are done. They don't look up at you. They've got their mics muted so you don't hear them start talking. So you don't have that piece of visual or audio feedback from your kids that it's time to move on. So what I'd like you to do is up in the chat pane in your Google Meet, I'd just like you to click in there and type done when you've finished the quiz. Of course, on my end, I can also open up the quiz and watch for the results to pop into. Okay. Pam, you need to type in that class code that I told you to get it to go on to the next page. It's 040820, today's date, April 8th, 2020. So 040820. Okay. The other way I could monitor to see if you guys have done it before moving on is by actually opening up that quiz and looking at the number of responses that have come in. Okay. I'm also showing you how to use Google Meet at the same time with that chat pane up there at the side. I also learned yesterday, which I thought was really super cool, that when you record a Google meeting, not only do you get the video of the Google Meet, but you get a transcript of the entire chat conversation, also saved in that same Google Meet recording folder, which I thought was really kind of cool. All right, so we've got 8 of you out of the 15 people in here that have finished it, so we're about halfway there. I'm going to advance to the next slide and talk a little bit about our Google Meet protocol and how to use Google Meet a little bit so that you guys know how to use it. One thing I will be doing is switching between 2 different me's, for lack of a schizophrenic word of a way of putting it. I'm in here twice, once as me on camera and once as me as a presentation. In a second, the camera is going to disappear and I'm actually going to be demonstrating how to do things in forms. Your view on your end may not change. What you need to know to do is to go up to the icon that has the people with 18 on it, and you will click between the 2 different John Bullingtons that you want to see at a time. Right now, you're wanting to see the John Bullington presentation, but in a little bit, you're going to want to see the other John Bullington that now says he's super awesome behind him. Okay? So you'll have to switch, you will have to switch between those views. I will do it on my end for the recording. So if you want go back in and watch the recording later on, it will be managed by me, but you have to manage it on your end. That's the same thing for your students when they're watching. If you're presenting and the other students are talking, you need to make sure that they click on you presenting so it locks you in or pins you in so it stays on their screen rather than switching between people who are speaking. Okay. If you guys have a question, as you can already, a couple people have done, you can unmute your microphone and please ask. Don't wait to the very end of the presentation, even though we have time for questions there. Just please interrupt me and we'll get the questions answered right away, especially if it's about something we're talking about right at that second that you don't understand. All right. And then remute when you're done so that we don't hear the dog barking, the child saying, "Mommy, I need my lunch or dinner," or anything like that. Okay. You can't imagine how many dogs there are in the background on these things that I've seen. Okay. Here's what we're going to cover. So in the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the basics of putting together a Google form and how we set it up to be a quiz. Okay. This should apply to everybody, no matter what grade level you teach and what subject area. Okay. The second part, from 325 to 330, posting a Google form in classroom, that will only apply to teachers in grades 3 through 12. K1, 2, you do not have a Google Classroom that you have access to currently. So you will need to use the email a link to a quiz to send that link to parents for them to have the students fill out. And there'll be one setting in particular that you're going to need to make sure you uncheck, one or two, I should say, that you uncheck, because you won't be able to send a quiz with those checked like the other teachers will who are using Google Classroom. So we'll talk about that difference there. Then we'll show you what collecting and grading and reviewing responses looks like, so you can see the data that comes back from these quizzes. And then time permitting, we'll have a little Q&A session. And I don't mind staying till later than 3:45. I certainly don't want to keep you guys here because I know you've had a trying couple of weeks and probably a long day already. So I want to keep this as short as I can, but informative. So that should be our agenda for today. I do want to speak really briefly to what Google Forms is not, because I've had a bunch of these questions these last 2 weeks, if you can guess. It's not a secure testing platform. There are so many different ways students can cheat on this that if you're using it as a bulletproof way to assess students, you're going to be disappointed. That being said, if students have Chromebooks that are issued by Shen at home, there is a locked mode on Google Forms where they cannot go out to the internet and they only can see the questions in the form, and then you have to answer them and then submit. If they leave that browser window, it'll lock them out of the rest of the quiz. So they can't go out to look at answers. However, they can pull up their phone, they can pull up another device, okay? So there's plenty of ways for them to get around even that secure way. It's not a timed assessment. In other words, you cannot say, start this whenever you want and you have 40 minutes to finish it. That will not happen. You can close responses, meaning after a certain amount of time, you are not going to accept any new submissions, but you can't set it up to be a timed assessment. Okay, you could issue it in your Google Classroom with a start at post this message at 9 o'clock, and then you could manually go in and shut it off at 10, but it's all manual. Okay, it's not a replacement for in-person examinations or those that require intricate answers. You know, if you need them to bisect angles, that's not going to happen. Okay, the part 2 type of math questions that we're talking about aren't going to be what Google Forms is for. It's really for formative assessment. Okay, all right. And my last slide in here for you guys is a link to a couple of resources. I'll add to these as we go. Our top tips card that Gail and I have designed, giving you the basics of how to create a Google form. The whole entire Google Suite Learning Center, which Google puts together a really great platform that takes you through step-by-step how to do each thing and walks you through it with videos. So it's a whole set of lessons with 3 or 4 different things to accomplish. I gave you Alice Keeler's. She's a really good technologist. She's got 57 different videos on how to do different things in Google Forms. So I put that in there for you. And then I put in specifically if you're using Google Forms as a quiz tool, how you can get more out of it from an article I found online for you. Okay, this presentation is available to you at that address in the upper right-hand corner, that bit.ly/ShenGFC. So if you want the presentation, it's there. Also, if you remember back on the agenda slide, which I will put back up. Oops. I updated that slide and it didn't update it in the screen. We have a Google Classroom that we just set up where we're publishing all the materials, including the recording of this, the chat transcript, the presentation. So that join code for that Google Classroom is down there at the bottom of this agenda tab, which I'll leave up for a while. All right. So at this point, I'm going to take a deep breath. You guys are all going to go up into the people pane that says 18. You're going to find the thumbnail of me that has my picture that says super awesome. You're going to click on that one to pin it to your screen, just like I am going to do right now. And then I'm going to switch my thing so that you can see the screen where we're going to do our work with Google Forms. All right, so hopefully you can all see this. So the first question we usually get is, how do I create a Google form? And a lot of people love using the little Rubik's Cube up here and clicking on the purple Google form icon down here. The problem with that is when you do that, you don't know where it's putting your Google form. It's putting it in your main folder, and you may have hundreds of files in there. Okay, so what we tell people to do is, instead of clicking on the purple form, click on the Google Drive icon in your little Rubik's Cube. Open the folder where you would like to store that Google form that you're going to create. So you can see I'm navigating through a bunch of different folders here. And then you can click New, go to More, and choose Google Forms. And what that will allow you to do is create a new Google form from scratch and add your questions to it. Okay, this Google form can be a survey. It can be an assessment. It's just a way of collecting information from each respondent. Okay, before we get started with showing you how to add questions to it and do all that kind of stuff, I just want to come up here and go through the settings for your Google form, because this is the really super important part, especially since we're a really mixed group. Okay, not sure. I know I see a lot of elementary teachers in here, but I don't know if any of you are K1, 2. So I want to make sure that I really highlight the two different ways to go about this. All right. So if you are K1, 2, where this checkbox is default check that says restrict to users in Shenandoah Central School District and its trusted organizations, you're going to have to uncheck that, because parents will not be able to complete your Google form with their students because they won't be able to sign in with a shenschools.org account. Okay, this is only for people who are able to log in with their Shen account and sign in. So that's 3rd grade and up. Okay. If you check this limit to 1 response box, the students will only be able to take the assessment, the form, once. Okay, so that's up to you whether you want to leave that checked or uncheck it. Okay. If you are a 3rd through 12th grade teacher, you can use this box here to collect the students' email addresses, and that email address box will also be used to send them their results of the assessment if you decide to have it scored automatically as part of the process. Okay. If you do not check this box, and if you're a K1, 2 teacher, checking that box won't do you much good, you do need to make sure that in your questions, you ask them for what pieces of information. And you can type it in the chat, or you can unmute and share with us if you know the answer to that question. What do you need to make sure that you put in the form as a question if you are not using that box? Liz, I can make my screen a little clearer because Google, for whatever reason, is throttling video in Meets by default. So I have to actually go in each time and change the resolution. So that should be a little better. Anybody want to answer me for the, oh, there we go. Somebody else saying it's blurry. So if you don't check this collect email address box, you need to make sure you put a question in that asks them their name. I can't tell you how many teachers have given a quiz using a Google form and then said, how do I figure out whose quiz is whose? I go, well, did you put a question asking them for their name? And they go, no. And I go, then you can't figure it out. Okay, so collecting email addresses is one way to know who turned in each quiz, or you put a question that asks them for their name. All right, you do not need to check either of these boxes down here. Okay, up here is where you can create this as a quiz versus just a survey. When you click on this tab, you're given a slider that allows you to make this a quiz. This next box is that security feature I was telling you about, where students who are using a Shen-issued Chromebook logged in with their shenschools.org account can be locked out of going to any other place on the internet and only are able to answer the questions in that Google form. Okay? As soon as they're done with the form and they submit it, it unlocks and they can do whatever else they want on the Chromebook. But when they start that quiz, they have to finish it or else they won't be able to leave that browser. Okay? How it gets graded, whether it gets graded immediately and sent back to the students, or whether it waits for you to review the answers before you send them back their results. This is great if you want to ask a short answer question or a paragraph question that you're going to score on your own, rather than a simple multiple choice question where it's only going to be 1 or 2 answers at best. When they get their report for the quiz, if you do not want them to see the correct answer to the question, you uncheck that box. It'll show them the ones they got right, the ones they got wrong, and the values of the questions, but not the correct answers. Okay, that's a 50-50 whether you want to turn that on or not. Okay, so we're going to make this a quiz. All right, up here, we give it a quick title. And then we can begin with our first question. Google automatically inserts that first question for you. One of the things that I think is really cool is as you start to type your question here, Google will guess at what type of question it should be for you. You can go in and select it ahead of time, but it's always kind of fun to start typing a question and see what Google thinks should be the best choice. So we'll go with a really simple one here for this. What is your favorite school subject? Okay, so Google thinks this should be a multiple choice question. Okay. I hate when I have little typing mistakes, but I may have to leave it for the sake of brevity here. All right, so now you can go down here and start typing your options for them. And we'll just stick to the core ones. Apologies to our special area teachers that are in here. Okay, I'm not going to fix my capitalization errors. I don't want to waste your time. So it said multiple choice. We can go in and we can choose other choices. So the irony is that multiple choice only allows you to select one correct answer. So it says multiple choices, but you really only get to make one choice. If you want the students to be able to select more than one choice, check boxes is the option you want. That allows them to check as many as they want. Okay? Drop down is the same as multiple choice in that there can only be one answer selected by the respondent, but instead of them appearing on the screen taking up 4 lines, it's 1 line with an arrow that they click on to drop down and select the answer from that box. So especially if you have 10 answers that you want them to be able to choose from, you would select that, the drop down rather than a multiple choice. Okay, those are your 4 main, well, actually I should say 5 main types of questions. You got your short answer, 1 or 2 words, a whole paragraph, multiple choice, check boxes, and then a drop down, which is still a single choice. Okay, these ones in the bottom here are a little bit more complicated. I'm not going to get into them right now, but the multiple choice grid can be used to do a matching section. You put a list of answers in rows, you'll put a list of answers going in columns, and then you can limit Google and say only allow people to choose 1 row and 1 column. So they can't use the same answer more than once. Okay? Now, when we come back here to our question, you'll notice that because we made it a key, there is a little link down here to put in the answer for this question. This is important if you want Google to auto score the test. So I'm going to click answer key. It lets me choose the point value for this question, so you can have questions weighted differently. Now it lets me choose the correct answer from these 4, and of course I'm going to choose social studies. And then if they get the answer wrong, you can give them feedback, or wrong or right, I should say. Correct answer, you can say, yay, congrats. Okay. Incorrect answer, you can put any type of feedback you want to help them. However, your incorrect answer feedback is not specific to the incorrect answer. It's for all 3 of the remaining choices. Okay. One of the really cool things down here is there's a link tool and a video tool. You can link for incorrect answers to video feedback, telling them how to find the correct answer, or you could link to a slide presentation or a doc where you gave them the correct information. Okay, so this is really good to give kids feedback on why they got something wrong in an automated quiz. Okay, literally you click on this and you can go out to YouTube and search capitalism crash course, typing in the box. And it will search YouTube right here in this box for you and find the videos that it thinks you want to use as your feedback. Or if you know the video and you have the address, you can paste the address right in here. And that will allow students to click on, watch the video, and get feedback for that question that they just got wrong, or that question they just got right. Okay? So that's giving the feedback. Okay, when we are done putting our answer key together for that question, we can click done down here. Takes us back to entering the next question. This required slider here means that they have to answer that question before they can submit their quiz. It will not let them submit it unless all required questions are completed. If you want to use these same 4 answers as the way, as the answers to 3 or 4 more questions, what I would suggest doing is using this button here to duplicate this exact question. And then you can choose from a different type if you want. We'll switch to multiple choice. And then instead of what is your favorite subject, we will put what is your least favorite school subject. Okay, so we don't have to retype in all the answers. Okay, if we didn't want to copy the question and we just wanted to add a new question to it, we can click this plus tool here and it will put a new question in at the point where our cursor currently is. Okay, so I'm going to type 1 to show you a neat feature. Are you okay with teaching online? So notice when I type that question, Google is able to interpret that question as probably a yes or no question. And below it here, it puts the suggested answers. If you like the suggested answers, you can click add all, and it will put them right here for you. So you got yes, no, maybe. If you don't want one of these answers, you can click the X to get rid of it. You can also click add an option and type in a 3rd one, or a 4th one, or a 5th one. If you click the add other for any question, what it will do is when they check the box when they're answering, it'll allow them to type in an answer. Okay, if you're doing a quiz-based Google form, other is not a great choice because then that causes you some problems on how you're going to build your answer key as what is the correct answer, right? Okay, if you want to put a question in and you don't want a correct answer, my suggestion would be to click on the answer key and put your point value for that question down to 0. So that way it doesn't count it in the grade it gives them at the end, but you still collect that piece of information. All right. A couple other quick things before we move on to looking at how you post this in Classroom or how you email the link. And I know we're 1 minute over already the time I was shooting for. So, but I want to give you enough of the basics so that you feel comfortable making a quiz. Okay. If I add a question that is short answer, and we'll do that, what is your favorite subject again? Okay. How do I build an answer key for this? Well, I can put my correct answer here. So I'm going to type in social studies. Because this is a computer scoring it, Google is very, very specific. So I typed in social studies lowercase because that's probably what most of our students are going to do. But know that I can put as many correct answers as I want, and it will look for any of those. So you can do SS because you think they're going to do it as the abbreviation. You can put it in capitals. If you know they're going to commonly misspell an answer and spelling isn't what you're grading, but the content is, you can put in the incorrectly spelled answer, and Google will still count it as correct for that student. So you can add as many variable answers here as you want. Okay. And then if you check this box, it'll automatically mark anything that isn't one of these answers incorrect. If you don't check this box, then you're probably going to have to look at it when you manually go to score it. All right, so I'm going to say done. I'm going to show you one last thing, and then I'm going to show you how to post it, and then we'll look at the responses. Okay, so here's the question that I asked you a few minutes ago. What is today's class code? Okay, why ask this question? What does it give you? Okay, this would be if you wanted to post an announcement with a link to the quiz in your classroom, or you wanted to send it out via email ahead of time, but you didn't want people to be able to go in and actually take the questions. What you would do is you would take this question, and you see how I'm grabbing these 6 dots. You would slide it to the top of your presentation, your form, excuse me. So that's the very first question. Then we're going to click on that question, and we're going to do this equal sign here to put a section break in. What that means is now on our first page, there is only going to be one question. Our second page is going to have all of our content questions. And automatically, after they're done with this first page, it will go on to the next section. Here's where we have to do some trickery. What we're going to do is make this question required. We're going to click these 3 dots, and we're going to say we want to do response validation. Notice that it was automatically checked with this one. So up here, it says the number is a number. Well, we don't want that. We want it to be, we'll go with equal to. Then we're going to put our code in here. And then we're going to put error text. Because if you don't put in error text, it gives them the code. That is not the correct code. Okay, so what this will do is, unless they type in the exact correct number, they won't be able to get to the rest of the questions. So if I was going to post this quiz, have a Google Meet, talk to students, and then have them take the quiz, I would tell them what the class code is when they're in the Google Meet. I wouldn't post it with the link in Classroom. That way they could only do it once they got the code from me. Okay, so it's a little way to stop them from just going on with when you're not ready for them to start taking it. Okay, that response validation allows you to do it. You could do, instead of a number, you could do as a piece of text. And you could say the text is contains, and then type apple. That's the word for today that they need to type in order to do the quiz. Okay, now if they put applesauce in, it would still work because it only has to contain that word, not just be that word. Okay, and we do still have to put the text in there. Not today's code. Okay, so that's the quick explanation of how to make a Google form. And I hope some of you have some experience already doing that, and I hope it wasn't too much of a review. There are things like you can add video clips from YouTube as part of your question, which you saw in the sample one that I had you guys do. You can also add images in either as part of your answer or as part of the question. So down here, when we're doing this question, you notice there's an image here, which could be part of the question. So you could say, here's a map. The question is, what does this map tell us about the United States? And then you can have your answers down here. Notice each answer can also be an image if you want. That's how I did that question in my sample quiz that had the 4 different authors, and you were able to click on the one that you wanted to select. Okay, so you can add images. All right. Now we're 5 minutes behind, and we now have to know how do we put this Google form into our classroom, or how do we give this to our students? So if we are emailing this out to parents, we are not going to collect the email addresses, and we are not going to restrict it to Shen Schools organizations. So this is our K-1-2 teachers. You're unchecking both of those boxes. And then you're going to click on this little eyeball right here. This little eyeball says, can I preview this form as if I was a person filling it out, not the person making it? So when I click on that eyeball, you see it takes me over to where I only see the first page of my quiz. And it gives us an address up here at the top. That address is the link that I would send out to parents, K-1-2, for them to do with their students to answer the questions that you'd like to collect the data on. Okay, so it's very important that you give them this link to the preview version and not this link to the version where you can edit the questions. Okay, they won't be able to get into this version. They'll get an error message, so it's not like they can see the questions ahead of time and change them. Okay, but it'll still cause a lot of confusion for them. You need to make sure you're using the preview button and giving them this preview address. If you are a Google Classroom teacher, 3rd grade through 12th grade, you don't have to do any of that shenanigans and worrying about which link you're posting in. What you're going to do is make sure first you gave your quiz a form. So we'll call this sample Google quiz. You're going to open up your Google Classroom. This is my class where I just post things that don't matter. It's my sample class. So I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to say your review quiz. Over here, you want to make sure the point value here matches the point value of the number of questions you put in the quiz. So if it's 7, make it 7. If it's 2, make it 2. If you don't, it'll cause a little confusion on the back end when you're trying to look at the results in Google. You're then going to click Add here. You're going to click Google Drive, not link. You're not pasting one of those 2 links. Notice when you come in, it's automatically on recent, and the most recent form you're working on is there. If it's a form you created a couple weeks ago, you'll have to go to your Drive, go to that folder where you created it, and select it. Once you select it and you click Add, it will put a link here. Notice that it gives you the option of whether you want to lock that quiz. Remember, this only works if students are using a Shen-issued Chromebook and if they're signed in with their Shen Schools account. If they're not, don't do that. This grade importing box, you do want to have checked, because once you go into the scoring screen in Classroom, you will be able to click on a button and say import grades. So I'm going to click assign, so this assignment goes up. You can put due dates. You can add it to a topic if you want in Classroom. I'm not going to review all that right now. Okay, so I'm in Classroom. I've given the quiz. I want to see the results. I click on it and I go view assignment. It takes me to this page right here. It'll tell me which students have completed it and turned in that quiz. And then to see their scores appear over here, I simply click this import grades button in the upper right. That'll bring all of the scores that scored automatically in Google Forms over into Google Classroom for you to see it. You don't need to actually go into the results page for the form to see that information. Okay, if I was to have posted that sci-fi quiz in a classroom and gave you the link to the classroom instead, we would be able to do that right now, but I didn't want to complicate things to start with. Okay, so posting your quiz in Classroom, it's the classwork tab, create, assignment, and then you need to click this add button and go to your Google Drive and select it. You do not use the link if you want to get the grades into Classroom. Okay, and then how do we see the grades and the scores if we are K1, 2? How do we see pretty charts if we're K12 and we want to see charts of how the kids answered? So over here, I have that Google science fiction quiz that you guys took a few minutes ago. Okay, I won't show individual answers unless somebody wants to step up and say, I aced it. You can use mine as an example. Okay, I'll open the chat window here so that if somebody does that, I can see. Okay, all right. So in responses, we click here. I can see that I had 10 of you fill it out. And right here, it's telling me, show me a summary of all 10 of those responses. Okay. Eric says he bombed it, but he's okay if I use this as an example. Okay, so we can see what the average score, the median score, what the range of scores was on it. So we got a range from 2 to 8. So nobody got a 0. Okay, and we did get one person that got all 8 points on the quiz. So unfortunately, I can't see who that is first and use them as the example. Okay, Google then gives me a summary. It gives me a frequently missed questions. So which of the following authors is considered a father of science fiction? Okay, and only 3 out of 10 people got that one right. So it'll give you which questions students got wrong the most. It'll show you, oops, individual scores. Okay, so Kelsey's the one that got all 8. Then it actually shows you graphs of the different data that you collected in the quiz. Okay, so you can come up here to the corner and you can click on copy chart, and then you can paste that into a presentation. You can paste that into a Google Doc. Okay, so there's all different ways you can use these charts afterwards. So 70% of you guys are elementary in this session that we're doing right now. Okay, so we have all the, match the author with the subgenre. You get data on every single question going down on how people answered, the green bars being the correct answer. If I want to look at an individual student, I click on individual. Those student names would appear up here by email address. Okay, we'll do Eric. We'll see how he did. Click on Eric. 4 out of 8 points, so he got half the questions right. Okay, coming down here, that was an example, by the way, of one of those matching charts that I told you about. So Ben Bova is a space opera author. Okay, and this is somewhat opinionated, but all right. David Drake is the military one. Arthur C. Clarke is the adventure, and then Jack McDevitt would be the detective. But beside the point, okay, and you can see it puts the correct answers right below there, so you can see if the key worked out right. Okay, so that's how you can see your data in the Google form. All you'll see in Classroom is the score that they got. Okay, so if you want to see more in-depth detail, you have to come over here into the form to do it. Okay, the way you get the form, again, is you put it in a Google folder. Okay, there's that Google form right there. You just click on it, it opens it up, and you switch from the question tab over here to the response tab to see the responses. If you want to close it so people can't submit answers after a certain time, you manually come in here and check that box, and now nobody can fill out that quiz anymore. Okay, so that's how you collect and view the responses in Google, which are our 3 points. Okay, it's from 3 to 335, it's 339. So now we had questions, sharing success stories, ideas, problems you need to overcome, things I went through too fast. Any other stuff you want to share with us?
John, can I ask a question about multiple classes?
Sure.
Okay, I am teaching English to 11th graders. I have 3 separate periods. I created a quiz. I thought I was being very smart, and I labeled period 1, period 2, period 3.
You created 3 quizzes?
I created 1 quiz, but labeled them differently.
When you posted them in Classroom?
Yes, and all the answers came back in 1 document, and it took me forever to figure out who was in which class.
Correct.
How can I avoid that? Do I have to make 3 quizzes next time?
So once you've made the quiz, you can come in here into your Google Drive and you can right click on it and you can say make a copy. And label 1 period 1, 1 period 3, and 1 period 5. And then the results will go into separate ones.
That would have saved me hours. Okay, thank you.
The other way that people do it is the other option for you is they put a question that says period 1, period 3, period 5. And then instead of looking at the data in this view, they click on the spreadsheet tool and they shuttle the data out to a spreadsheet and then sort it by period 1, period 3, period 5. But the better way, I think, is making 3 copies of it and doing it that way.
Got it. Thank you.
You guys are so quiet. It bothers me. I don't like quiet, if you couldn't figure that out from my personality.
No, it's great.
So I hope this was what you wanted for this 45 minutes. I'm going to try to keep designing a couple more of these 45 minutes and having 1 or 2 each week for you. Okay, so if you have suggestions or ideas, please don't feel like you'd be hurting my feelings by sharing them with me or saying. I am going to post the recording, which is with somebody's question. If you switch back to my other instance, not me talking, but the agenda screen. The agenda screen has a code to join a Google Classroom that's called Virtual Technology Tools. Vanessa and I have been working on it, mostly Vanessa, to give her credit. I will post the video of the recording, the Google Slide presentation, the transcript of the chat, and all of that into that Google Classroom. Okay, so that if you can't see the agenda slide, the code is P as in Paul. Actually, you know what? Let me do it this way. I will type it in the chat for you right now. So you are going to go to classroom.google.com. You're going to click the plus and join. And then you're going to put in the code P7BUBF3. And for those of you who were with me yesterday, you can see that I've already posted the slides and the video of our lesson, which was, what did we do yesterday, Kelsey?
What?
What was our lesson yesterday?
Our lesson yesterday was about the
whiteboard.
whiteboard.
Digital whiteboards. Thank you.
Whiteboards.
Whiteboard.
If you can't do the math from that, I'm over 50 at this point. So that was yesterday. Today's today. I've already forgotten. So, all right. Have a good weekend. If I don't talk to you in the next couple days, next week on Tuesday, I'm doing the basics of how to use WeVideo to make videos. And I'm hoping to also have an announcement go out next week with a couple for the week after. All right. If you have any questions, please contact me. I'm on every day from 9 to 11 and 1 to 2 in a Google Meet for you just to stop in and ask questions. If you need the address for that, it is on the Inside Shen curriculum and instruction page in the virtual tools presentation. It's also bit.ly/Shen remote. So, and I'm on daily 9 to 11 and 1 to 2 every day unless I get scheduled into a meeting that I don't want to go to. All right. Have fun, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I always forget to stop the recording. So I got to pop back in and stop the recording.